study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Welcome to the Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, the go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into natural wellness, holistic healing, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause or working through chronic conditions, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science-backed insights, powerful stories, and soul-nourishing inspiration. If you're a woman over 40 or 50 or older looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Julie DeLucca-Collins to the show. Julie is a business and life strategist who helps women entrepreneurs build profitable businesses without sacrificing their health, families, or joy. Her work is rooted in sustainability, not just in business growth, but in life as a whole. As a certified Tiny Habits and Thrive Global Coach, Julie specializes in practical, positive changes that actually stick. She brings a wealth of experience as a former C-level executive and is the founder of Go Confidently Services, where she supports women and small business owners in rethinking outdated approaches with clarity, focus, and honest accountability. Julie is also a TEDx speaker. She's a best-selling author and was recently named a top 50 over 50 podcaster by Hardy House Media, recognition that speaks to the depth and authenticity of her impact. What truly sets Julie apart is her passion for ethical marketing, racial equality, racial equity, and open dialogue, making her voice especially powerful for those seeking a more holistic and value-driven approach to success. I'm so excited for this conversation as Julie brings both practical wisdom and approachable energy. And I know you'll walk away feeling inspired to grow without burning out. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Julie DeLucca-Collins to my podcast. Julie, thank you so much for being here today. I am truly honored to have you and super excited for our conversation.
Susan, I am so thrilled and I appreciate the invitation and warm welcome to your show.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Julie, I'm going to begin by sharing a little bit about your personal journey from C-level executive to business and life strategist for women and entrepreneurs. Tell us about that.
It definitely is something that I look back at the journey. It's going to be 6 years since I have been in this full-time entrepreneurship journey. I will like to say that I began my entrepreneurship journey when I was 12 and I created my own little side hustle. And I've always had that inkling inside of me that I wanted to do my own thing, but of course, went the traditional route. And toward the end of, I would say, 2019, I had gone through a coaching certification a couple of years before. I had been doing some training and working as a mentor in some of the local universities here in Connecticut. And I thought, I just love working with women and I love being able to empower them in a way that nobody tells you can. Think we need to do the thing, but we're competitive with each other. We're competitive with ourselves, and we're always knocking ourselves down, not giving us enough credit. And for me, I feel that anytime that I moved up in my corporate ladder, it's not because I had it together. It's not because confidence was so great, but it was because I showed up despite being uncertain, despite that little voice in your head that says, oh, who the heck are you to be doing this? And my journey really began when I knew that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what that looked like. And I put that on the side and decided, let me continue to plug along in my job and I'll make the plan. I'll make the plan to take the next step. Maybe when I retired or I leave this job, I'll do something on the side. And in 2020, we had a global pandemic, and the organization that I worked with is an educational company. So when schools shut down, all of our contracts went away. And the CEO and the executive team, we made the decision that two of us were going to accept a separation package. So I took a separation package, and it was really, I wasn't apprehensive to take it. I was in some ways grieving, obviously, the life that I was leaving behind, but excited at the opportunity to be able to define what this new chapter was going to look like for me. And despite the fact that I didn't know specifically the clearer picture, the overall mission and vision that I had was that I was going to support women in gaining the confidence, creating the structure and habits, right, that helps us gain I would say the evidence that helps us to know that we're doing the thing and builds our confidence. And that's when I launched Go Confidently Services. And I really love to be able to sit and be a support system for women, whether they're entrepreneurs or individuals in the corporate environment who are maybe trying to figure out what their next chapter is. And out of the blue, something interesting happened. I was turning 50 that same year that I got laid off, Susan. And I was planning a big birthday party for myself and thought, oh, this pandemic thing is only a couple of weeks. And by April, I will have my big birthday party. But my husband saw the writing on the wall. And he said, you've talked about starting a podcast for a long time. I got you podcast equipment so you can start a podcast. And the first thought I had was like, oh, this is fun. But wait a minute. I don't know if I can do this, right? Because that's the first thing that comes into our brain is, can I? How do I? And he said, don't worry about the tech. I will do the tech. You do the talking. And that's how our podcast, Casa de Confidence, was born. And what started as a passion project with my husband has become an integral part of not only the business, but also the way in which we help entrepreneurs and individuals, thought leaders. And it really has been such an incredible ride and adventure, because what started as a vision and mission that I was really confident that I wanted to go after has really evolved into something that I can tangibly see the difference, right? When we worked with clients, whether it's in building their business, helping them take away all the overwhelming things that come with business ownership and allow them to do what they do best. It's such a rewarding experience for us to know that that client in turn is creating a difference in the lives of the people around them. So that's what my entrepreneur journey is like.
So you speak often about building business sustainably. What does sustainable success really mean to you?
Yeah, sustainable success is something that can be replicatable. And I think many entrepreneurs unfortunately suffer from what it's often referred as the feast and famine or the roller coaster ride. A sustainable business is a business that has offers, that has products or services that they have, and they have a continued growth or have consistent income coming in that not only allows the entrepreneur or business owner to pay themselves, but it also may be creating an impact by hiring other people. And it's also serving the individuals that are purchasing their services or collaborating with them and creating an impact in the lives of people that need that business, the services or products that the business has. So that to me is sustainability, but many entrepreneurs don't have a plan. And I often tell them that without a plan is trying to navigate to an unknown without a GPS. I may be able to say, Susan, I'm going to go to California today. And I can get on the road and try to figure out how to get to California from Connecticut. And I'm sure I will make my way there. But the GPS tells me the best route. It tells me if there's construction, if there's traffic, and where the good places to stop for gas or maybe to sleep could be. And that's really what the plan for an entrepreneur is, that GPS, because we know the destination. We know what we have in mind. But the how, what do you do day to day? That's really where the sustainability needs to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do so many women feel like they need to sacrifice their well-being to grow a profitable business? Isn't there a healthy balance that we could find?
Yeah, such a good question. I think that I am in a good place to answer this today. I have a client that hired me, and I love the work that I'm doing for this client. It's a nonprofit organization, and this woman is running some incredible work here in Connecticut, but she needed some of the support. And I decided to really go all in this project for her. And really, I thought I need to get this done. And because in my brain, I want to please, I want to make her happy, I want to support her, all of the things that we as women want to do, right?
Yes.
And in putting her organization, their needs are everything, then I tend to forget my needs, right? Is it sustainable for me to work 24/7? It's not. Is it sustainable to not have a good night's sleep, to have a good meal, to go for a walk? All of these things are things that we compromise because we are trying to do it for somebody else. And we believe in the work that we're doing. We understand. And I think that many women also put everybody else first because they don't feel they deserve it, or they're not aware of what their needs may be, or what they're looking or have to give to themselves in order to grow. The example of the oxygen mask is so overused, but it's so true. And again, last night I made a choice. All right, I need to close out the computer. It doesn't define me as a bad person if I'm not showing up for this person 24/7. It defines me as a bad person if I get sick down the road and I'm not able to give. So I need to create that intentional margin, that boundary for myself, and pour into my own cup, put my own oxygen mask, recalibrate, and then show up with a fresher mind and body and spirit to be able to commit to the things that we commit to.
Yeah, absolutely. As a certified tiny habits coach, why are small, consistent changes more powerful than the big overhauls?
Yeah, I want to ask you a question before I answer that. Now,
Okay.
do you always feel motivated?
No, some days I want to throw the computer out the window.
Yeah. So this is exactly why these tiny habits are incredibly
Yeah.
important for our consistency, because motivation is unreliable. Motivation is something that we're never going to feel. Now, when it comes to habits, the habits of maybe going to the gym every day are great and they're phenomenal. However, when motivation leaves you, if you're trying to create a new habit, or when things get hard, or when life happens, right? Even though we may have a good intention, the motivation is going to leave, and then we're going to not do the habit. So then it's very difficult to create that neural pathway that creates that new habit and then cements the habit into your life.
Yeah.
So the thing that we must do is we can still do the thing, but we need to start small. Because if you create an action that it's so small that you think, oh, you know what? I don't have to, it's not about going to the gym every day. It's about putting my gym shoes every day. And if I go for a walk, it's a bonus. But my goal is always to start small and to at least put my gym shoes on, right? And then this way you get into the habit of doing it. And the more that you get into the habit, you're like, you know what? I have my gym shoes on. I might as well go for a walk. And this is how you begin to implement that. Now, here's the anatomy of a habit. It's A, B, C. There's an action, there's a behavior, and then there's a celebration. And in order for you to create a habit, you are going to then need to marry the new behavior that you want to have to the existing action. So, for instance, for me, I get up out of bed in the morning. What is the action? I get up out of bed. The behavior that I want to do is I want to be a little more fit, and I start by putting my gym shoes on. And my gym shoes are next to the bed. So when I get up in the morning, I'm going to trip over the shoes if I don't put them on, right? And then when I put my shoes on, and this is the part that people don't get, right? When we create a habit, we are creating a new identity for ourselves. And the way that we create that identity is by celebrating that we did the action. So as soon as I put my shoes on, I say, oh, good job, Julie. You're a girl who puts her shoes on and goes for a walk and it's fit. But I celebrate the small, tiny action. And then by celebrating it, then your brain says, oh, I feel good every time she puts her shoes on. So then your brain starts to create that automation, start habitual behaviors by going big. And if your brain is not used to doing something, you're going to be relying on motivation. And like we said, motivation is not reliable.
But how does a woman stay consistent? Because other things get in the way. I'm speaking for myself personally.
Yep.
I always have great intentions. Sometimes I go to bed at night and I say, when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to do this, that, and then something happens and all those intentions are out the window. So how do we stay consistent?
Yeah, the consistency only comes when the behavior is so small. And this is why a lot of times I hear from clients, oh, but if it's so small, it doesn't count. It doesn't. And that's really where we go wrong, right? When we try to do too much, our brain goes into overwhelm and our brain then decides, oh my gosh, I have all this going on and now it's raining outside and the dog needs to this and whatever. Life starts to happen. And then whatever it is that we decide becomes lower in the priority. But if we create those actions that are so small, that I will tell you one of the things that one of my tiny habits, and this is another one that I teach my clients, is when I come to my desk, I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish as an entrepreneur. And I'm going to write that newsletter. I'm going to outreach to these people. I'm going to write the podcast. And sometimes maybe I'm not writing as consistently as I want. So one of the things that I do that has created and helped me create the habit is when I come to my desk, is the first thing that I do is I don't start writing, I don't start checking email, but I open a blank piece of paper and I say, what is the one thing that if I do today, I will be proud of myself for doing it?
What?
Just the one thing.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean that I am going to jump into doing it? No, my goal is to just remind myself of what is it that will make me feel proud of myself at the end of the day. And after I write it, then I can decide, oh, should I start working on it? Can I jump into it? Or, okay, this is the one thing that I want to do today. Where in my calendar can I fit that? But really, the goal is not that you're going to do that thing because life can get in the way. You can decide, you know what, in the afternoon, I can go for a walk this afternoon. But if your intention is that you're going to remind yourself of what's important and what you want to accomplish, and that's all you're trying to accomplish, you will be successful because that's the first thing that you did in the morning and checked. I was going for that little thing and I did it. The same thing to think about, and this is often as a Tiny Habits coach, and the Tiny Habits coach community uses this example. A lot of people, even though it's something good for us, we are not always consistent at flossing. And a lot of times it's a pain. Like, oh my God, I need to get in there and really do the cleaning. So the best way to create a habit for flossing is after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth, right? So then you start, you floss one tooth, and you're like, oh, I'm here already, right? And you
Yeah.
keep going. But in the days that you're like, oh, okay, I flossed one tooth, yay, I did it, and you give yourself credit for it, you didn't fail at the task of flossing, did you? You
No.
didn't, because you did it. So start small, break down these big goals that we have, these huge passions and dreams, and start to ask yourself, what is the smallest, most doable action that I can take? And this is how you measure a tiny habit. Can it be done in less than 3 minutes? Can it be something that is so insignificant? Like maybe you're gonna, I have a client that wants to practice more piano. Her goal is not that she's going to sit at the piano. Her goal is that she's going to pull out the sheet music and put it where she can see it and look at it for a minute. Now, guess what? When she does that every day, on the days that she sits down and plays for maybe an hour, it's great. And that's the bonus. But she's still a girl that sits at her piano every day. And creating that identity helps you embody more. And habits are like the plants, the beautiful plants behind you. They need to have the space, the right environment. When we don't create the right environment for a habit to grow, then it's very difficult for it to have roots, to take roots, and then to grow up and around you.
Yeah. That's great advice. I love that. Simple little steps. How could women lead with confidence without feeling that they need to hustle or to always be proving themselves?
Yeah, I think that this goes back to something, it's something that we probably all heard. If there is a job posting, a man can maybe meet 40 to 60% of the requirements in that job posting and they will apply. If there's a job posting, in the same job posting, a woman can be 90% hitting the mark with what is required for that job. And they will second guess themselves. That's the reality of women. We don't give ourselves credit for what we can become or what we can do. And the other piece of it is that we always believe that when we are going to lead, when we're going to jump into whatever role it is, we have to have it together. And that's a misconception. Everyone in this earth, when we start something new, is going to start as a beginner. And having the beginner mindset is incredibly important for us to then be able to create the momentum and show up in these areas of life. Many women believe that when I show up in that promotion, I need to have it all together. Or when I am going to volunteer, I need to know how to do the volunteer work. Or if I'm going to run for office, that I need to have that experience. You gain the experience by doing it. But you have to take that first imperfect step, and you have to give yourself the permission to be imperfect, to be beginner in practice, because through the practice, you're gaining the evidence that you're learning, that you're getting better. You're also, hopefully, and most unavoidably, you're going to have a failure along the way. And that failure will teach you so much more than anything else can teach you. And from that gift of learning from our mistakes, you're going to find that you can show up and do it better and then keep going and build a momentum for yourself.
Yeah. But do you feel that women, they don't have the confidence because they feel inferior to a man or less
I
than?
think that there is that possibility. And I think that for some women, they grew up in very traditional homes. They grew up in
Yeah.
homes in which the father is the one who did everything for the household, brought in the paycheck, took care of everyone. And they saw the role that they saw was relegated to maybe a wife that kept the home, but really deferred to her husband. And then there's nothing wrong with that. However, there's also women. I grew up in a household where I had a single mom, and my mom had to compete, had to be in the same places as men and show up. And I think that, yes, our world is always going to give more opportunities to men, hands down. It is how our society is set up. But the reality is that the more that we see women doing it, the more that representation is going to give us the ability to say, why, wait a minute, that lady did that. It's possible for that lady. It's possible for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Diana Nyad. the swimmer, and I don't know if I'm saying her name incorrectly, but she holds one of the world records, and she swam from Miami to Cuba on her own. And she was probably in her 60s. And when she did that, I remember thinking, a friend of mine actually invited me. She said, "Hey, I'm going to be doing a triathlon. I think you should do that with me." And I thought, a triathlon? I am not an athlete. And of course, the picture that I have in my brain is this very buff, fit guy doing a hardcore triathlon and in his bike with that face very concentrated. And I thought, I could never do that. And I learned how to swim, but I can barely do the doggy paddle. And then I saw Diana do the swim. And I thought, you know what? I'm sure she didn't just wake up one morning and decide, right, that she was going to swim. She decided that she was going to practice, that she was going to get better. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sign up. And I signed up. And that meant that I had to go to the gym to go practice my swimming, and I had to get better on the bike, and I had to do some walking and walk, run. Now, this triathlon that I did, it's a women's triathlon, but certainly my brain immediately went to second guessing myself everywhere along the line, from the moment that I signed up to the moment that I crossed the finish line.
Wow.
But what we have to do is we have to not push away and try to push away the thoughts of I'm not good enough or who am I to think that. We cannot push those thoughts away, Susan. We have to be aware that the thoughts are there.
Yeah.
We have to say, "Ooh, I am telling myself a story that I'm not good enough. I'm telling myself a story that I'm not a good enough swimmer." Now, here's a little anecdote from the triathlon. It was a bunch of girlfriends. We went to South Carolina. We came from all over the country and met up. And the event is called the She Tries, which is a pretty fun name. And we started first with the swim. And we weren't going to swim in open water. This is a big country club, and they have an Olympic-sized pool. And basically, you would swim, I don't know, the 200 yards in the pool, right? And like I said, I know how to swim. I learned how to swim later in life, but I didn't think that I was a great swimmer. And now when you signed up for the triathlon, they asked you to rate yourself in a scale from 1 to 10. Where are you as a swimmer? Now, the high achiever in me wanted to say I was an 8, a 9. But, the imposter syndrome, Julie, the one who's very unsure of herself, said, "Oh my God, Julie, you're a 2. So I decided to compromise and not go with a 5, but rate myself as a 6.
Okay.
And of course, I thought, okay, pretty good. I'm a 6. And we were all standing in line based on the rating that we gave ourselves. And you stood in line, and then you would jump into the pool based on when your turn was. And as soon as the starting line gun went off, the women that were in front, that were the 10s, started to jump into the pool. And they were Olympic swimmers by far. They were going at it. And I'm standing there just petrified because I thought, oh, I don't measure up. Oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What was I thinking? And my girlfriend said, snap out of it. Those are the Olympic swimmers. We are the everyday swimmers. And it's okay. And it puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
Could I become an 8, a 7, an 8, a 9? Absolutely. If I were putting in the time, if I were putting in the reps. But and maybe I'm a 7 today, but we really have to become content and satisfied to swim in our own lane. Because every time, and I will tell you, even throughout the competition, I jumped in the pool, I'm doing my swimming and I'm going along. And then all of a sudden, I looked over to both sides and started to look at the swimmers next to me. As soon as I started to look at what they were doing, as soon as I started to say, oh, they're going faster than me. Oh, wait. Then that took my attention away from what I was doing, and it slowed me down. And that happens in our life all the time. We're comparing, we're despairing over the comparison, and that takes us away from our own lane. If we stay in our own lane, if we still stay focused, see where we're going, that direction, then we can hone in our skills and we can become better. Then we can and celebrate where you are in those skills. Because I certainly might have been a 6, but there were people who were a 1, a 2, a 3. And those people are seeing you saying, I want to be a 6. And that's what we have to continue to do.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. It's a mindset. It really is.
Absolutely.
You have to have that mindset and stop feeling inferior. And a lot of women, for whatever reason, they feel inferior to other people or to men, and we
Mhm.
need to get on the same page with them. That's my personal opinion.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that
Yes,
for so many of us, right, again, like, into your question is, yes, we see men and we compare and despair when it comes to seeing what men can do, and we think, "Who am I to do it?" You don't have to do it like them, you don't have to do it like a man, you can do it as a woman and as a leader. For instance, women CEOs come in with so much more empathy, they come in with so much more of gifts that sometimes men don't have, but that make them better leaders. And we have to
absolutely.
really be able to step up into that role.
Yes, yes. Let's switch gears for a little bit. I want to talk about ethical marketing and authentic growth.
Oh,
You're
that's good.
passionate about that. What does that look like in practice?
I think that we live in a very noisy world, Susan. Everywhere we turn around, there are going to be ads, whether it's social
Yeah.
media or whether we're out in the world going to dinner. There's going to be that. And ethical marketing is the thing that most people don't really talk about. But some of these practices are really the ones where promoting products or services with honesty, with transparency and responsibility as well. Honesty and transparency, for instance, is the communication about the features of the product, the ingredients within a product, or the process that it takes to do something. Or also, ethical marketing could be the fairness or the integrity and the accountability that we have for what we are offering. A lot of people, when it comes to truth in advertising, they're making a lot of claims about benefits, about pricing, about ingredients that maybe they're making it sound better than it is. Ethical
Mhm.
marketing is knowing, right, that when we speak what we do, when we share what it is, and we are upfront and honest, we're going to build long term trust with our customers. We're going to get loyalty. We're also going to protect our reputation of our brand. I have to say, I purchased this sleeping. They don't have chamomile, but they have another herb. Forget what it is that is for sleeping. And I purchased these, and they were great. Every time that the menopause mind wants to keep me awake, I take my little sleeping gummy and I go to sleep. And there was a company that was advertising that, "Oh my goodness, we do this and they're so great." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to order them." And they were terrible. They were terrible. And they said it's fresh. And then when I went to read the ingredients, nothing that they talked about in the ad was actually in the ingredients. And I thought, huh, okay. Now, I got them because they were new, they were fancy, and they were also saying, "Oh, you get all of this at a better price." And I thought, okay, why not? They're $10 less. I'll try them. But just because I was getting a lesser product doesn't mean that I was getting what they said they were providing. And the same thing, I see this a lot with clients who have service-based businesses. They're sometimes afraid to share what they do because they're afraid that someone is going to think that they're not good enough, or they're afraid of putting their pricing up front or sharing that because they are afraid of people thinking they're too expensive or too inexpensive, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that if we're upfront and honest and share this is what it costs, is not because, and we can get into a lot of theoreticals when it comes to selling, right? And all of the things that, again, imposter syndrome creeps up when it comes to selling. But our value is designed for the person that needs us. And there are going to be people that say, that's too expensive, or people that are going to say, oh, this is too inexpensive. But the people who believe in you, the people who resonate with who you are, your message, and your brand are going to be okay with what you're offering at the price that you're offering it.
Yeah. But how do you come across authentically without feeling very salesy or misaligned? Where's the line between that?
Yeah. So I think that for me, when it comes to selling, I don't view selling as, ooh, I'm going to try to get what I can from the customer, right? Or from this person. I view selling as a relationship. I don't sell. I create relationships with people.
Okay.
And I create value, and I know exactly the value that I bring to the table. I know exactly the results that people that have worked with me have been able to receive. For instance, we have clients that have a podcast that were struggling with doing all of the things in the background for the podcast, and then they would have to do the edit, and then they had to do the social media promotion, and they still were getting maybe 10 downloads, 20 downloads per episode. And I am quite confident. We have actually a podcast that started working with us 6 months ago. And in looking at their numbers, I knew we were going to be able to help them not only streamline their processes, create a better product that they were putting out as far as the sound of their show, but I knew also that we were going to be able to create a growth strategy. And they have grown almost 50%, and actually more than that. It's probably more like a 68% right now. But I knew when I started working with them that it was going to be a little more investment in their part from what they were paying. Yes, but I was also confident in my ability. I also created a relationship with a person. It was about what value am I bringing to them and how will that impact this business by the value that I'm bringing them. And many women, especially when it comes to selling, they feel that they need to be fancy, put on all the right messages, and oh my gosh, I better tell them how great it's going to be. But people are going to buy because they have a need or they want to feel a certain way. And if you can either deliver on the need because someone may be struggling with that and then you're coming with their solution, it's value to them. In the same way that if they want to feel a certain way, maybe someone wants to lose weight and you're bringing in the right structure for eating habits, for drinking your water, for making sure that you're getting your movement in. That's a value that this person needs and desires, and you're giving them the result. So you are being paid and you are giving them something that they value and are willing to pay for. But again, you're doing it in a relational basis. Anytime that you feel I need to go in and sell it, I don't know how this person is going to react. You don't have to. 9 times out of 10, I don't typically go out and try to get people to buy from me. People come to me for referrals. Why? Because I have great relationship with my clients. And then those clients introduce me to other people who say, hey, here's another person. And then I build a relationship with that person. And a lot of times, if I'm building a relationship and someone will say, hey, I want to work with you because I've built a relationship with them, I also will bring to the table and say, hey, I'm glad you want to work with me, but I may not be the right fit for you, but I know that Susan over there may be the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And that's value and ethical marketing, right?
Yes.
I'm sharing what I have, but I'm also honest and open and say, hey, there might be a better fit, or what you're looking for is not something that I do yet, but I know someone that does. And when we create this environment of collaboration, then people feel more at ease with what you have. And guess what? If you don't work with me because I said to you, there's someone who can deliver you better, the next time that you know someone that needs my services, you're probably going to send them to me because you know that this person may be a right fit.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to stop the competition, but create more collaborative spaces.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Let's go on to talk about burnout, because burnout is so common among women. What are the early warning signs that you see most often?
Yeah, it's something that I'm so glad that you're talking about this, because I think that a lot of times we go, and if you have a high achiever, they're going to be in the middle of these burnout signs and they're not going to recognize them. Sometimes some of the basic things, right? There's going to be emotional and mental signs when it comes to burnout, exhaustion, your negative, your inefficiency. Maybe there's something that you really enjoy and now you're just not interested in it. And you are having trouble concentrating. And even perhaps you feel stuck. I remember in my corporate job in my early years in that middle management, I loved what I did. I was good at what I did, but I got to a point in this company in which I was traveling, probably 3 weeks out of the month, I was working long hours. I was commuting from New York City to New Jersey and driving, and I was in the car for many hours. And I just remember feeling stuck. And I thought, oh, is this all there is? That was a sign of the burnout for me. And of course, there's some of the physical signs like fatigue. You're going to feel that persistent tiredness that doesn't go away, or the sleep issues. You're not sleeping, or maybe you're sleeping too much, or your sleep is disturbed in the middle of the night. And the other piece that really, when I went through burnout, that really was like the big sign that I was in burnout is I started to have physical illnesses. I actually was diagnosed with my autoimmune back then. And the autoimmune really came because every time that I was more stressed, that I was doing more, that I was really depleting myself, the symptoms are my autoimmune. And even now, right, when I start to feel some of my symptoms of my autoimmune, like my joints are hurting me, or I start to get a persistent cough, I have Sjogren's, then I know, oh, wait a minute, I need to back off a little bit because my physical body is starting to show the signs of maybe what I'm not ready to accept. Also, your body aches, and ultimately, the other signs too that people forget when it comes to burnout are some of those behavioral signs. You're procrastinating on something. You know, there's tasks that are maybe complex, but you're procrastinating in them. You're also withdrawing from society. You don't feel like spending time, or you're not doing the things that you enjoy, and you want to isolate yourself. And ultimately, the other piece of it too is when we are in burnout, we have poor performance overall. We're not going to be able to show up. And we talked about this. We're not going to be able to show up at the best of ourselves because we're so depleted. So that's really important to keep an eye out.
Yes, absolutely. And so many women don't even recognize that they are in burnout, and they,
100%.
especially in corporate America. I was in corporate America for 30 something years, and it's perfectly normal to be coming in at 7:30 in the morning and leaving at 9 o'clock at night, and getting on a commuter train and getting home and eating anything that you could just grab
Oh,
and then
sure.
go to
Yeah,
sleep and get
that's
up the
right.
next day, and it's a vicious cycle,
Do it
and
all again.
it's
Yeah,
so unhealthy.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we don't talk about this enough. And I think that our we all have these sabotaging behaviors, and we created them as a young child, maybe because we wanted to protect ourselves, maybe
Yes.
because we wanted to receive love, and whatever it is, it's not a bad behavior. They're protecting us, but ultimately they can lead to a burnout. They can lead to something that can just spiral out of control. So
Yeah.
this is where communities, this is where being in touch with girlfriends, being a part of individuals who maybe are 10 steps ahead of you and can say, hey, by the way, my friend, I think you're working a lot, or step back a little bit, or someone that can just remind you, right, that you don't need to prove yourself. There's something that I often talk about in my podcast and I share with my clients all the time, and that's the concept of a believing mirror. And a believing mirror is that person that reflects back to you the things that sometimes we forget are there, our gifts, our talents, our strengths. And when we are in burnout, a lot of times we're trying to prove ourselves. We are trying to become better. We are trying to measure up. And the reality is that we already measure up. We already have what it takes. And if we just remind ourselves, and sometimes it's very hard to remind ourselves. So this is where the believing mirrors will come in and can remind you, hey, Susan, you're wonderful. You're doing such a great job. Or Susan, you don't have to work that hard. We know you've got this. And that's the other piece. And when it comes to burnout as well, the other thing that we don't do well is ask for help. And if we just ask, people will say yes, but we are so afraid to burden others, or we're so afraid that asking for help will make it mean that we're not good enough. If anything, asking for help shows people that you have the emotional intelligence and strength to know what you can do and what you can do better by helping and having someone help you.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. In closing, what is one small step that our listeners could take today towards a more balanced, fulfilling version of success?
I think that the biggest step that you can take is number one, connect with the future version of yourself. Who is the future Julie? Who is the future Susan? And what does she have and accomplish that you're just so proud of? And maybe the future Julie is traveling around the world. And maybe the future Julie is maybe competed in another triathlon. Who knows? And for you, my friend, when you connect with the future you and you're proud and you see what they've done, the next step is asking, hey, Julie, what did you do every day to become that person? And that future self has the wisdom that is going to help you create the path daily today.
Wow, that's beautiful. Julie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you being here. Such a great conversation with you. I wish you the best of luck. Where can my viewers find you? And I'll also put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. You know, what an incredible platform you have. And thank you so much for inviting me. I've had such a fun time chatting with you and getting to know more about your listeners and you. Simple enough. I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins everywhere on the interwebs, but my website where you can find all my best resources. I have tons of free resources and guides and anything, Julie. And you can also learn about my books there. The website is goconfidentlycoaching.com.
Okay. I'll put all of that in the show notes.
Terrific.
Thank you, Julie, very much for being here.
Thank you. All right, Susan. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hope you're walking away with a renewed sense of permission to grow your dreams without sacrificing your health, your values, or your joy. Julie reminded us that success doesn't have to be built on burnout. It can be through small, intentional choices, honest accountability, and deep respect for who we are and the season of life that we're in. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with Julie DeLucca-Collins, explore her work, and continue this conversation around sustainable success and authentic growth. You'll find her information in the show notes. And if you found value in this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a woman who may need this reminder that she doesn't have to do it all or do it alone. Thank you for spending time with me on Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. Until the next time, honor your path, trust your wisdom, and remember, success nurtures the mind, the body, and the soul. Have a great day.